All right. So let's get started like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. You've all done this before, so give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture, and remember, focus on the sound of the bell. All right, so give you a moment. We'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. Hello, Sophie. Glad you made it today. All right, so, as has happened on occasion, somebody asked about something, I think it was Friday or may have been Monday, I'm pretty sure it was Vengel that asked a question about the 3 refuges. And that kind of brought to my mind that maybe it's time just to touch on them again. For those of you that haven't before, and those of you that have heard us talk about the 3 refuges, this will be like an update, if you will. So, the 3 refuges. Across Buddhist traditions, the recitation of taking refuge is the initial step for all people that are on the Noble Path. This is the first thing, if you want to say that hate to put it this way, but makes you a Buddhist. I don't hate to, but it's not a good choice of words, really. Uh, that refuge, it can be taken in a big ceremony, with the Sangha, and we could all stand by our cushions and do it. That's wonderful. But then you can also make that choice at home in front of your home altar, or even not an altar, and you can do the 3 refuges and say, this is a path I'm going to put myself on. Because the 3 refuges are a vow, right? They're just like a precept vow. They're just like the 3 pure precepts. They're vows. Now, in the Chinese Chan tradition, reciting the 3 refuges, and sometimes they're called the 3 treasures, and they've been called the 3 jewels of Buddhism, is kind of how a person becomes a Buddhist, if you will. Now, this is not an act of accepting a person or accepting a place or a thing. This is an act of realizing the reality of the 3 ideals that link all Buddhist traditions: the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. It is a realization that at any time in your life, when needed, when things happen, experiences, situations, and you just get all discombobulated, there's a place you can return to. You can find sanctuary in the 3 refuges. Again, this is not an act of conversion. Somebody didn't come out and say, ooh, you want to try being a Buddhist? Right? This is a choice. You looked around, you said, Buddhism. That looks like it might work for me. So we can choose to approach the noble path then with the knowledge that Siddhartha was a human being just like us. He was an extraordinary human being. Let's give him that, but he was a human being. And he's one whose example we can follow. And we can approach the noble path with a realization that the Dharma is a dynamic reality, right? Always going through transitions and transformations. And we can approach the noble path alongside others who have similar goals and who are searching for similar experiences, the Sangha. So there you go, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The precise meanings of each of the jewels, their interconnectedness, and how to honor each of them differs a little bit between traditions. But again, like with so many other things we talk about, the intent of the 3 refuges remains steadfast between traditions. The purpose, if you will. The intent being that once on the noble path, that the practitioner can return to the ideals of the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha whenever needed. When those times come that you need to reinforce your belief or reinforce your experiences, or maybe you just want to strengthen your practice, right? You feel like maybe you've come to a plateau and you want to find something beyond that plateau, right, to get you past it. This is what refuge is all about. This is what we can, let's say, can help us deal with the realities of human existence, knowing that we have these 3 refuges. Now, there's a sutra, it's called the Buddhavagga Sutta, and it has verses about refuge. It's probably some of the earliest things that we could look at and say, ooh, they're talking about refuge. So I want to read this to you. Again, this is from the Buddhavagga Sutta. They go to many a refuge, to mountains and forests, to park and tree shrines, people threatened with danger. That's not the secure refuge, not the supreme refuge. That's not the refuge, having gone to which you gain release from all suffering and stress. But when having gone to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha for refuge, you see with right discernment the 4 noble truths: stress, the cause of stress, the transcending of stress, and the Noble Eightfold Path, the way to the stifling of stress. That's the secure refuge, that the supreme refuge. That is the refuge, having gone to which you gain release from all suffering and stress. So the idea here in this sutta is to say, look, there's a lot of places that people go because they're looking to get themselves out of some sort of perceived danger, whether it be a mental danger or physical danger, or whatever it may be. A spiritual danger, if you will, in this case. But it says, look, those are refuges of a sort, but they're not the best refuge. And it goes on to say, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, if you have right discernment or right view, then you see that this is your safe refuge. This is the place to go back to. This is how you can help alleviate. They use the word stress as a stand-in for suffering here, right? Because stress is, of course, a kind of suffering for sure. Now, in engaged Dharma, you guys have heard me do the 3 refuges here over and over and over, but these are recited before, like when I go to sit in the morning or in the afternoon, I do this. I do it before we open any sessions with you folks, because it's important. It's important that we get this in our mind, okay? So, the 3 refuges, again, that we do every session. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dhamma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dhamma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dhamma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. Swaha. Now, I don't know if you can tell, I hope you can, that when I'm saying that, I'm smiling, right? And not a big, weird Pan Am kind of smile, but just a nice smile, because it's important and it means something and it has some sort of spiritual power to me, right? It reminds me. So I say it with a smile because that honors what I'm saying, right? Oh, and by the way, you can find this in a thing called the Sarana Gamana Sutta, is where the 3 refuges are first shown in writing. So the 3 repetitions follow this traditional Chan ritual of intent. The first recitation, the I go to the Buddha, the I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. The first recitation then, this is to remind us that we made the choice to walk the noble path by going to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha for shelter. We made the choice. The second, that we accept the refuges as moment-to-moment ideals that must be engaged in the reality of the world we live in. The third, that we realize that refuge, that serenity and equanimity, can always be returned to. So the first recitation, we made the choice. I go for refuge too. Right? It says, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. I made the choice. Then I take refuge. So I take it, I accept it, right? And I'm going to work with this in my moment-to-moment existence to try to understand better the reality of the world I live in and be able to respond to it appropriately. And then the third, I have taken, is that we realize that we can always go back. I've done it once, I can do it again. And once the recitation ceremony is completed, then the intent of the 3 refuges can begin to become part of our conscious thinking, right? And with the repetition, the ideal of the 3 refuges then can become firm in our unconscious mind. And it just becomes spontaneous, right? That it becomes part of, well, let's call it a foundational cause of how we are. It is a simple act of intentional recitation, deep listening, and solemn reminder of a chosen path. It is a ritual done with the intent to transform how we are. So I'm going to look briefly at the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So the Buddha we look at as what's called the physical body, right? This is the thing that we can look at and go, ooh, look, a human being, right? A person who did this. So at times in life, we may become disillusioned or be assailed by doubt that one human being, like ourselves, can have an appreciable effect on the unsatisfactoriness and the suffering that we recognize around and within us. So we can feel ourselves stepping back from our commitment. The I don't know if I can do this syndrome. Well, Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha, he lived and died as a human being. That's what he was. Right? He encountered the same experiences as any other person of his place and time. Now you might say, whoa, wait a minute, he was a prince and he grew up in all this luxury. That's true. He did. But then he left that and he experienced all that other stuff. Right? So he was just simply a man. He wanted to find a way to relieve unsatisfactoriness and suffering that he came to realize, right? When he stood on the walls and he saw the folks suffering. So he is the personal human component in Buddhist philosophy and practice. Siddhartha didn't come to realize a path out of unsatisfactoriness and suffering by hiding out in some dark, damp cave, and he didn't sequester himself in a monastery, right? Didn't have anybody bothering him. He went out in public. He sat under a Bodhi tree. He was in full view of anybody walking by. And he meditated, and he meditated, and he sat until he awakened with the realization of the four ennobling truths. Then came Siddhartha's moment of doubt. Remember, human being, right? Like you and I, he had his moments of doubt. We can pretty much be assured of that. His moment of doubt was this realization too much for other people to understand? I mean, I got it, but will they get it? Do I have the skills necessary to get this important message out to others? Well, lucky for us, he ultimately decided that it would be selfish to keep this knowledge to himself, because with the knowledge came the responsibility to tell others. Each of us have moments of doubt. Can we do it? Whatever it may be, can we do it? Well, we can look to Siddhartha as our example, and we can go on to be an example to others. We are taking refuge in the Buddha. The Dharma, that's the teaching body. Traditionally, the Dharma, or you guys hear me call it Dhamma. I've used the word Dhamma for so long, it's almost weird for me to say Dharma. But traditionally, the Dhamma in Buddhist philosophy has three manifestations. The Dharma recorded as the words of the Buddha in the Nikayan texts, which are considered the earliest known texts of the words of the Buddha, these are known as scriptural Dharma. So they're the scripture, if you will. Realized Dharma. This arises when the practitioner puts information into practice and comprehends its positive transformational effects. Okay. I'm hoping you guys have at least had that experience, right? That you put the information that you learn into practice and you find out, wow, this had positive effects. Excellent. I'm going to do this again. And third is just the Dharma of the reality. The Dharma that is the reality of the world that we live in. It is the realities of causality, the not-self, and of impermanence, and of suffering. Right? We take refuge in all the manifestations of Dharma. Right? Sometimes we want to read the text. Sometimes we want to put the text into practice because we are looking to the reality of the world around us. And through the Dharma, the Buddha presented us with ways to live in harmony with the world, ways to live in harmony with the people, and the ways to live in harmony with ourselves. Now, I found an interesting quote in an article from Tricycle Magazine, or excuse me, this was from their website by a lady named Beth Ross. The article was called Family Dharma, Taking Refuge, and then in parentheses, On the Wings of Angels. And as Miss Ross wrote, we have to look to everyday moment-to-moment experiences and learn from them. We have to learn to be aware and accept the causal process of the universe and take action within it to create and maintain human flourishing. While we all have individual views and individual lives, we must realize that they are never separated from the communal living that goes on around us. And what we do has its effect. So she says, to take refuge in the Dharma has other interpretations as well. It can mean to take refuge in the truths that have been revealed by our experiences, the laws of nature, or the principles that govern our individual and communal lives. So she says again, look at our moment-to-moment experiences, learn from them. Right? That's what gets revealed. She talks about the laws. We have to be aware and accept the causal process of the universe and realize that we have to take our actions within that causal process. There is no way to get outside that process. And that while we do live as individuals, we also live within a community as individuals, right? You guys have heard me say we're all unique expressions of the universe, but we're not unique in the universe. That's what that points to. So when faced with situations, we can just take refuge in the Dharma to direct us toward wholesome transformation. I can look to the things like the Eightfold Path, the Four Nobling Truths, the Three Pure Precepts, and of course, the Three Refuges. And then the Sangha. The Sangha is known as the community body. And in the Mahayana tradition, there is less of a distinction between monastic and lay people. Pretty much everybody's considered Sangha, right? I'm Sangha, you're Sangha. That comes from my Mahayana background, that I see us, though I may sit on the cushion up front, we're still all the Sangha. And the Sangha is important because Buddhist philosophy and practice isn't meant to be only an individual pursuit. Though let's be honest, it kind of seems that way in the beginning. Right? You're meditating at home, you're practicing, you're thinking, you're trying to look at your emotions and your actions and your intent and your view. So it can seem like an individual pursuit. But it is meant to have a strong, socially engaged aspect. From the earliest incarnations of the Noble Path, the Buddha made it clear that his disciples must travel around and spread the Dharma through example, right? He would send his disciples out during the dry season in all directions, and all they were told to do was walk around. Just be. Be that example. So while they were a community of Buddhist disciples, or let's call them of Buddha's disciples, they were also members of communities as they wandered out, right? So here at the Buddha Center, this EDIG Sangha that we sit in here twice a week, it's a support network, right? It offers friendship and it offers shared experiences so we can learn from each other. A Sangha like this provides fertilizer that will help each practitioner grow into a socially engaged and socially relevant Buddhist. And here's another good thing about a Sangha. When you sit with the Sangha and you're looking around, especially here where we have an international Sangha, right? We're not all from one country or one place or even, one time zone. As we sit here, this allows our brain to think on a more encompassing scale because we're not sitting with people that live next door. We've got a variety, right? So the connections between members reveal that each of us are representative of the whole Sangha. And as a representative, then, each of us become more than ourselves, right? We realize that we are, in some way, shape, or form, a little piece of everybody. Now, this does not mean we lose our personal identity, whatever we might think that is, and that's a whole nother lesson. Only it means that there is no duality between individual and member. You are both, and they are not separate. So it is through interactions and personal connections developed within the Sangha that our social selves can begin to arise and develop more, right? Stronger. And we discuss relevant issues, and we discuss the effect of applying the teachings of the Buddha to those issues. Through social consensus, we make decisions on the values of the actions we have taken and how we can better react to situations that if they don't turn out so well. The Sangha. It's a very important aspect of the Sangha that we must be able to air our views without fear of judgment. We grow to trust the members of the Sangha, and this trust is a refuge. So we can take refuge in the Sangha because of that trust that we develop. Now I want to give you an example here of airing our views. I don't know, I think Eric has, I know Elf has, I don't know if anybody else here today has sat in on one of the talks about eating meat, about Buddhist diet. I can tell you, when we have that talk, there's a lot of airing our views that goes on, and that's great. That's what we want, because that's what the Sangha's for. But in the end, it's all about engaging the three refuges. I mean that use them, right? Make use of them. Make them part of what you do. Buddhist practice, we know when we sit here, this is all about rewiring the body-mind. Right? It's all about strengthening the positive practices that we already engage in. We've got lots of those. And then discarding or transforming the negative ones, which we have some of those too. And this isn't mind control. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, right? I'm not trying to tell you how to think. So it's not mind control, it's not brainwashing. No one, deity or otherwise, is coercing you or can force you to change. It is up to you to choose your path. Reciting the three refuges is a reminder that no matter what situations we face, there are places of sanctuary. They might just be in our head, but that's still a place of sanctuary. We can go to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. We can refresh our awareness that we have to do things like accept the world as it is, because that's a biggie for us, because we'd really like it to be the way we want it to be, but it seldom is, right? And that we can take actions necessary to make ourselves that better human being that we want to be, and through that make society better in ways that we would like it to be better. So I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dhamma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. All right, questions, comments?